Welcome back. This is your math tutor Naresh. In this video, this is part 2 of the remove brackets and collect like terms. We're going to do some homework and practice questions. So let's get started. So the question would be to simplify, remove brackets, and collect. That's what the question would say. So if we have positive 2 plus a positive 7. So how do we add this? So again, positive times positive is positive. So I don't need to write the positive sign. 1 times 2 is 2. So this simply becomes 2. And then positive times positive is positive. 1 times 7 is 7. So the answer now is 2 plus 7, which is 9. So we're done with that. Now next example, so if we have positive negative 11 plus negative 4. So we're adding two numbers, or combining two numbers. The first one happens to be a negative number. The second one also happens to be a negative number. So before we can combine, we want to remove brackets and remove the excess signs, and then we can combine them. So positive times negative. Positive times negative is negative. 1 times 11 is 11. So once we remove brackets, what comes out is negative 11. So this one, positive times negative, is negative. 1 times 4 is 4. So now we have two numbers that we're adding, and they both happen to be negative. So simply add 11 and 4, we get 15. And because they're both negative, so negative goes in front. Okay. And now we'll do another example. So negative 13 and plus negative 4. So remove brackets. So negative times negative is positive. So I'm not going to bother writing the positive. 1 times 13 is 13. The next term, positive times negative is negative, so we put a minus. 1 times 4 is 4. And now this is 13 take away 4. 13 take away 4 is 9. And when we have, so I'm just going to go back to the first number here. So we have a negative, and we have on the outside, and then negative 13 on the inside. When you have a negative on the outside, whatever is inside the bracket, it changes sign. So that's what you're taught in high school. Some teachers or tutors would say that, so that's a way to remember. So if you have a negative in front, whatever is inside the bracket, when it comes out, it will change sign. So negative 13 becomes positive 13. Okay, so one more example on this. So let's say if we have positive 17 and we are subtracting 19. So remove brackets here. There's a positive 1. Positive times positive is positive. 1 times 17 is 17. Or simply, when we remove brackets, it remains positive 17. Now we have 19. When it comes out of the bracket, it's going to become negative because it's got negative in front. So minus 19. Okay, let's go back to our first principle and just double check. So negative times positive is negative. 1 times 19 is 19. And now 17 take away 19. So from 17, we don't have enough fingers to subtract 19. So, right? So, but we can subtract 17 from 19. The answer is 2. But because we're subtracting a bigger number from a smaller number, the answer is negative 2. Alright, now let's collect like terms. So the question will still say simplify, and then it may also say collect like terms. Okay, actually let's say collect like terms. Collect like terms. So that's what the question would say. Now if I have example 3a plus 2a plus 5a, so this is similar to what we did in the previous tutorial. 3 apples, 2 apples, 5 apples. how many apples altogether? 3 plus 2, 5, 5 plus 5, 10. So we have 10 apples. Okay. And another example, so 3x minus 7x plus x. So all three terms are alike because they have the same variable and the variables have the same exponent. We haven't talked about or learned about exponents yet, but it's good to know. So in this tutorial, we're keeping the exponent simple anyway. So in this case, they're all x to the 1, 1, 1. So all we have to do is simply add the coefficients. So 3 plus 1 is 4, and then we have minus 7. So 4 take away 7 is going to be negative 3. So negative 3x is the answer. Okay, now so let's look at something like this. So we have 3p minus 6p plus 2c. So we can use any variable. It doesn't have to be a, b, or x, y, or z. It can be, in this case, it's a p, and we have a c. Now, the first thing is to recognize which two terms are alike, or which terms are alike. In this case, two terms are alike, the 3p and the negative 6p, right? So the 2c is on its own. There aren't any other c terms, so that's just by itself. It'll get copied every step of the way. Now, 3p take away 6p. So 3 take away 6, so from 3 you take away 6 fingers, not enough fingers to take away. So we know it's going to be negative, right? So 3 take away 6 is negative 3. So negative 3p plus 2c. 2c gets copied, and that's all there is to this one. Now let's look at an example where we may have fractions. Right? It doesn't matter whether we have decimals, we have fractions, we have whole numbers. It really makes no difference because the concept is the same. We're given terms. Our job is to remove brackets, remove the excess signs, and then determine which ones are alike, which ones are not, and then add them, subtract them, whatever is required. So here we have 1/2 x plus 1/4 y minus 1/3 x. So it looks a little bit complicated because the fractions are making the expression somewhat complex, but it really isn't, right? It's no different from saying, okay, 5x, 4y, and 3x, right? So it's just the added complexity is now we have to work through the fractions. But removing brackets or collecting like terms, that concept is still the same. So which two terms are alike? The x terms are alike. So in this case, I'm going to write them together. So 1/2 x minus 1/3 x, and then I'm going to write the y term separately, or at the end of the expression. Y is by itself, it'll just get copied every time. So all I really need to do now is combine these two. And to do that, I would want to have the same denominator. So here I can multiply by 3, so I'll get 6 as the denominator, and here the 3 I can multiply by this denominator too, so I'll have 6. Whatever I multiply the bottom number by, I multiply the numerator by the same number. So in this case, I'll multiply by 2. So what I get here is 1 times 3 is 3 over 2 times 3 is 6. So I get 3 over 6x. And this one here, 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. And now copy the y term, 1 over 4y. So now here, both of these, same denominator, so all over 6. Now 3 take away 2. 3 take away 2 is 1, so 1 over 6. I'm collecting x terms, so the variable is x. And lastly, copy the y term, 1 over 4y. And we're done. So that's how we collect like terms. So it makes no difference whether we have whole numbers, fractions, decimals, right? Nothing really changes for us. It's just that it's a little bit difficult sometimes to work with fractions and decimals, right? But we have our calculators, we can use them. Alright, so now what I want to do is, let's do maybe a little bit of complex problems. Okay, so now, so the question will still say simplify and collect like terms, or even it may say remove brackets. But once you're given the question, like it's understood, like you'll know what to do. So for example, if I give you a question like this, so we have negative 3x inside the brackets plus negative 4x and then minus x, right? So what can you do here, right? So even if you're not told simplify, collect like terms, right, how do you simplify this, right? So intuitively you know that you have to simplify this. So since this is my first question where it looks a little bit complex, I'm going to reiterate the rules we had learned. So just for this question, I'm going to go back to the very basic, the first principle. So first thing I want to do is remove brackets. So here there is imaginary 1, negative times negative is positive. So I don't need to write the positive. Now multiply 1 with 3x. So 1 times multiplied anything will be that anything. So 1 times 3x is 3x. So we've removed brackets here. Next, so we have positive. Positive times negative is negative. 1 times anything is anything. So 1 times 4x is 4x. And this is minus x. There's nothing to remove. It's on. We can simply copy this, minus x. And now you see how we've gone from somewhat complex expression to a very simple expression. Now this is no different than saying 3 apples, take away 4 apples, and then take away another apple, right? So collect like terms. So I can do the math all in my head, but I'm going to collect all the positive numbers first and then the negative numbers, and then so 3x is the only positive number or positive term, so 3x. And now these two are negative, so negative 4x, negative 1x. So what's negative 4 and negative 1? You add them together and they're both negative, so negative 5, negative 5x. And now what's 3x take away 5x? So from 3, not enough fingers to subtract 5. So 3 take away 5 will give us negative 2. Negative 2x. And that's the answer. Okay, so I followed our first principle, or the basic principle. Do we have to do this every time? No. We can simply go, I didn't need my ones in there. I could have simply gone from this line to this line, and then I could have gone directly from this line to this line. Because I can add numbers in my head, so I can say, okay, negative 4, negative 1, that's negative 5. Negative 5, and you add 3, I'll get negative 2. Alright, so now let's do some more examples. So what if I have negative 2b plus 5p minus negative 3x plus 4a. So how do we remove brackets and collect like terms? So here I'm just going to talk and not write the negative or the positive, the 1 or... So negative times positive is negative. 1 times 2b is 2b. Bracket removed. 5p, no brackets, gets copied. Next, negative times negative is positive. 1 times 3x is 3x. Last term, nothing to remove, gets copied. Okay, so are there any terms that are alike? B, any other B terms? No. Okay. P, any other P terms? No. Okay. So X, any other X terms? No. Okay. A, is there any other A term? No. So that means we're done. There is nothing to collect because all the terms are different. Why are they different? Because they have different variables. Okay. All right. So that was the end of that question. And now we have, let's do a fraction. So negative 2 over 5 x, and actually I'm going to put negative on the outside, plus we have negative 1 over 10x, and then minus 12 over 5x. So they're all x terms, so they're all alike. So all we have to do is remove brackets and then add the fractions. Okay. So negative times positive is negative. 1 times what's inside the bracket is whatever is inside the bracket. So bracket has been removed. For the second one, positive times negative is negative, so minus 1 times 1 over 10x. It is 1 over 10x. Lastly, the last term gets copied, 12 over 5x. So now we have x terms, and all we have to do is collect the, all we have to do now is simplify the fractions. So here I have a 10, and here I have 5, here I have 5. So I need the same denominator in order to collect the numerators. So I can multiply this by 2, so I'll get 10, same denominator. Then I need to multiply the numerator by the same number. And I also need to manipulate this. I can multiply this by a 2, so I'll have a 10. And then I need to multiply this by 2. And there is more than one way of doing these problems. So here, since I had the same denominator here, I could have added these two first and then changed to denominator of 10. But it makes no difference, you'll arrive at the same answer. So here what I get is negative 4 over 10x. 2 times 2 is 4, 5 times 2 is 10, and then this gets copied, minus 1 over 10x. And this one here, so 5 times 2, I'll have 10, 12 times 2 is 24, and this is an x term. So now, all over my denominator I'll have 10, and this is the x term. All I need to do now is add the numerators. Okay, so this is a negative 4, and this is a negative 1, and this is negative 24. And the good thing is that they're all negative, they all have the same sign. So all I need to do is add the numbers. 4 plus 1 is 5, 5 plus 24 is 29. And because they're all negative, so it's negative 29. So here I have negative 29. So this collects to, or simplifies to, negative 29 over 10x. So that's the concept there. So when I look at it, there is nothing complex about it. You just have to make sure you follow whenever you go from this step to the next step, make sure you do your arithmetic correctly, and that really is the key when it comes to these kinds of questions. So when you remove brackets, so the answer that you write here, make sure it's correct. But that does not mean that you're not allowed to make errors or mistakes, mechanical errors. Make them. The more mistakes you make, the more errors you make, the more mechanical errors you make, the better it is for you while you're practicing. Because when you practice, check your answer at the back of the book and see if you got it right or not. If not, then go back and redo the question. And then the chances are that you will make the same error the second time, because that's how the human mind works. And but it's good to learn, because then you can program your mind. Okay, so this is where I go wrong every time. Every time when there's a negative in front, I do something incorrectly. Okay, so then you'll know what you do incorrectly, and when it's time to take the test, you will actually know. Your mind will know. You got to stop at that step, take a step back, and make sure you got it right. So I'm going to wrap the tutorial here. I hope you found the tutorial useful. If you did, please like or subscribe, and we will see each other in the next tutorial. Thank you for watching.